Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the regular council meeting of Tuesday, September 28th. I was just commenting, it's very nice to look out and see some blue sky and finally see some fall colors, not rain, so that's lovely. First order is to have roll call from our clerk, please, Mallory.
Perfect. Councillor Clark?
Yeah, present.
Councillor Donaldson?
Present.
Councillor McKechnie?
Present.
Councillor Smith?
Present.
Councillor Wood Roberts?
Present.
And Mayor Roberts?
Present.
Perfect.
Okay, and next we will adopt the agenda. So if I could have a mover and a seconder, please, to adopt the agenda. Moved by Councillor Wood Roberts and seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Be it resolved that the agenda for the regular meeting of the Council of the Municipality of Dysart et al. Held on September 28th, 2021 be approved as presented. All in favor? Okay, that carries. And next I will ask if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof. Nope, seeing none. Next we have the adoption of 3 sets of minutes. They are there as listed, so I'll ask for a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Smith and Councillor or Deputy Mayor Kennedy. Oh, well, there's a Freudian slip. McKechnie. Be it resolved, the council approves the following minutes as circulated. Special meeting of council, August 20th, 2021. Regular meeting of August 24th, 2021, and the public meeting of August 24th, 2021. All in favor? That carries. Thanks. So next is Mayor and Deputy Mayor update, and I'll be very quick today, sort of firstly, and I know council knows, but we're all very excited and really pleased that Deputy Mayor Kennedy, so that was what was on my mind, will be returning back to his duties in October, both here at Dysart and at the county. And I really want to thank Councillor McKechnie for stepping up to the plate and serving in his stead. And thank you so much for doing that. And I know on a personal note, we're all just really pleased with how things are going for him. So that's exciting. Secondly, tomorrow night, there is a Shoreline meeting at the county. It's at 6 p.m. and it's on YouTube. So I encourage Dysart councillors to be watching that to see what the comments are and where things are at in the process. So that is, you can find the YouTube link on the county website. And like I say, that's at 6 p.m. tomorrow night. And lastly, in light of September 30th being the National Indigenous Day, I am going to be reading a land acknowledgement today. It was included in our package later along from the Curve Lake First Nations that Tamara will be speaking to that whole report later. We respectfully acknowledge that the Municipality of Dysart et al. Is located on the Treaty 20 Michi-Sagi territory and in the traditional territory of the Michi, Sagig, and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaties First Nations, which include Curve Lake, Hiawatha, Alderville, Scugog Island, Rama, Beausoleil, and Georgina Island First Nations. The Municipality of Dysart et al. Respectfully acknowledges that the Williams Treaties First Nations are the stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. That is our land acknowledgement, and that's all I have. And I'll just turn it over to see if Councillor McKechnie wanted to say any words today.
Yes, thank you. I'd just like to say again, on behalf of all the council, of course, and the county council, how happy we are that Pat's coming back. We know what an important part he is to our team on our council here at Dysart and also at the county. So he's a great competitor and he's back and he's ready to go. So that's so positive. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move into the body of our meeting, and we have, excuse me, reports and recommendations from local agencies, boards, and committees. And while there aren't minutes with everyone, I do like to go through to see the news, what's happening in and around. So I will turn to Councillor Donaldson for any report on the Harcourt Community Hall Board.
And nothing to report different than last month.
the ladies are still, well, now they're baking pies for Thanksgiving, and I think all's going well. They've got a lot of response from it. And other than that, it's the same.
That's great. When are the pies? When can you order pies up until? Do you know
Oh
the
my
date?
goodness.
Oh,
I
that's
don't know.
okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I know the pickup is at the hall,
Okay.
but the dates will be on the hall Facebook, I think.
Excellent. Okay, thank you for that. West Guilford Hall Board, Councillor Smith, I believe we had a meeting last night.
We did. In fact, the group met last evening at the West Guilford Recreation Center. Things are active. We had a celebration of life in the facility on Saturday. Last night was the first meeting of the hall since March 29th. Rentals have been getting booked. We've got some out as far as 2023 now, and we appreciate the guidance that Andrea Mueller has provided in terms of supporting us following the new COVID rules. Coincidentally, we're going to pies, and those will be on the Saturday of Thanksgiving weekend in the parking lot. So it's not an indoor operation, but that's a good activity. Of interest, last night there was a good discussion about the condition of the parking lot, and after a good discussion, general consensus was we should leave the parking lot as it is. The thought of converting it to gravel was kind of a risk, if you like, in terms of gravel being packed inside. There is a bit of asphalt at the door right now, and so let's preserve that, and maybe use those dollars for some other facility improvements. So we also are going to restart the pickleball. So we'll have indoor pickleball again this winter at the center, and so bookings for that are now open. And I guess that would be the key comments from last night's meeting.
Thank you for that. And in light of what you're just talking about, some of the repairs or things, I know we do have staff that will do, as we're heading into budget season, there are staff that will maybe report on any facilities or any upgrades that need to be done to the buildings, both Harcourt, maybe not so much as it's new, but you never know what requests are made. So I would just ask the next meeting that you take to bring, if there's going to be any budget requests, to be submitting those as soon as you can. You can probably, Barbara, could they submit them directly to you so that they're for consideration? And then when we have our first budget meetings, I'm not saying that they get them, but we don't want to be into January and find out somebody needs they need a new dishwasher. So Barbara, is that okay if they, through the counselors, they submit anything like that directly to you?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Next, we have the Rails End report. So that's Councillor Clark.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. This Thursday, the 30th, we're having our annual general meeting, and we're also having our election of the board. So that's an opportunity for the membership to connect and some discussion on direction over the next year. Just finishing up a show by Gord Jones from Algonquin Highlands, and the next one starting this on the 30th actually is for John Leonard, who's quite a well-known landscape artist. So that'll be running through until November the 13th. A lot of our programming still continues to be on the outside. We will be slowly opening up things as COVID kind of subsides a bit, but at this point in time, a lot of our programming continues to be outdoors. And other than that, there's just some, they continue to be active in the community, trying to engage seniors and youth and ukuleles and knitters and all the rest of it. So it's very much a cultural piece for our community. Thank you.
That's great. And thank you for that report. And I'm sorry, can you just, the date of the AGM? It's in our report, but I.
Well, the 30th, it's on the 30th, this coming Thursday at 7 o'clock.
Thank you. There is a report there. So if we are, if we can have a mover and a seconder to acknowledge receipt of that. Councillor Smith and Councillor Clark. Be it resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the September 2021 Rails End Gallery and Arts Center report. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. Next we have BIA, Councillor Wood Roberts.
Hi, BIA meeting is this evening at 6:15. Going to be talking about the Santa Claus Parade. The health unit has given the Lions Club the go ahead to do that this year. So it's something for everyone to look forward to. And other than that, there's not a lot, hasn't been a lot of communication. They've had lots of input from the health unit for all these store owners and restaurants, how to be attempting to manage the passport vaccine. So I'm not sure, probably get more feedback on that tonight.
Okay, that's great. And it's certainly a challenge for all those restaurant owners in the front line, you know, the serving staff that have to be responsible for being the ones to check all that out. But anyway, we appreciate that. And I know through this whole pandemic, they've made every effort to, you know, stay in business and keep open and do what they can. The town looks amazing. So thank you to the BIA, but also there's a host of volunteers that signed up to do that decorating. And I think they were looking for volunteers at the very last minute. So to anyone who helped decorate our town to make it look all festive, thank you to that. One thing I think, Councillor Wood Roberts, at your meeting, if you can bring up the fact that we've been able through the pandemic, been able to relax the rules with AGCO for the outdoor patios, extending onto municipal property. I have no idea what's going to happen next year. So maybe Tamara, you can also find out what AMO is saying or through AGCO and find out, you know, we don't want to, these are the kind of things, even though it's just winding up from one season, throughout the winter season, we should be in preparation. If we're allowed to extend the license again, great. Perhaps we can. We may have to consider that they are using parking spaces, which we do receive revenue. But anyway, that's just something that's been on my mind, that the off season is the time to be investigating that. So if you can take that and thank them for decorating. I assume Harvest Halliburton is still not able to meet at this time.
Yeah, it's yeah, there are a lot of the key resources are still focused on COVID recovery. We are starting into some discussions as to kind of what Harvest Halliburton will look like going forward, but that's just starting. So perhaps at the October meeting, I maybe have an update at that point.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Clark. Anything on the next three items? Okay, so that concludes that section. Now we have recommendations from the Committee of the Whole from our September 14th meeting. Questions, comments, all the recommendations are in there, excluding, as you can see, recommendation number 4. Does anyone want an explanation of why that recommendation came out? Councillor Smith?
Well, before we get to number 4, I was wanted to speak to number 3 for a second, because I noticed later there's an allocation from the Modernization Fund to do that waste composition study for all 4 seasons. And I remain skeptical as to the value of the waste composition study at $15,000 per season. You know, and particularly when you think we're analyzing recycling that we're soon going to be no longer responsible for, and we're also only doing residences. The biggest source of the organic waste was actually restaurants and other commercial facilities. So those photographs that some of the advocates for improving our handling of organic waste isn't going to be addressed. We get those photographs of the big pile, those big piles didn't come from a residence. They came from a restaurant or another commercial facility in our community. And so to be thinking of spending $60,000 analyzing the waste from residents, I just have not yet seen value of that. And as I said, it's concerned that we're now allocating $60,000 from the Modernization Fund to that.
That's a very good point, because I also believe that we were going to look for collaboration and within the lower tiers and see if we each did a season. So I thought there was talk that Minden would do it next, and that we would only, we were going to do it in the fall. And so I think we need some more clarification on that before we pass that recommendation. So Councillor Smith, are you saying that we say in the resolution, with the exception of recommendation 4 and also with the exception of recommendation 3?
I'd be good with that. I'm opposed to number 3. So yes, pull it out. Sure.
Staff, Mallory?
Mayor Roberts, recommendation number 3 only permits it for the fall. It says that we include it in future funding, but I think you're speaking to 2 different reports. Barbara's report is where later in the meeting under finance is where it's trying to commit funds for later seasons. But this recommendation doesn't, my understanding of it is it was committing it for the fall study.
On closer reading, I think you are correct, which is great because you're the clerk. And so thank you for that.
But even with that, I'm still opposed to it for a single season. As I said, it doesn't cover commercial waste. Our problem here is organic waste. And although the committee passed that resolution, I opposed it there, and I remain opposed to it. And so I'd like a separate vote on it.
Okay, fair enough. So Councillor Clark?
Yeah, I think us doing these studies are very important. Where you have to go into contracts with companies going forward, we're being able to redirect this. If we don't have knowledge of what we're redirecting, what the scope of our service requirements are, this is a huge dollar item in our annual budget, like hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we're quibbling over $15,000 so that we get our service contracts right. That's not good. That's not the way it should be done. Thank you.
Okay, so Councillor Donaldson.
I just have a quick question. Are all the municipalities in the county doing the study?
We don't know yet. There was going to be collaboration, but the recommendation 3, as Mallory's pointed out, is really only for the fall. Later, we'll talk about the other seasons. So I believe that was up to $15,000 for just the fall study. And yes, there is talk. There is a service delivery review meeting last week with the at the county. We discussed that, and that's where I believe I heard about the other municipalities may come on board with that. So all we're committing to right now is a fall season, a fall study, excuse me. And I think for the sake of procedure, what we need to do is, because that is the recommendation and because the resolution is that, I would look for a mover and a seconder on the resolution as it stands. If we don't, or Mallory, because I'm Robert's Rules of Order, and it doesn't mean Andrea Roberts, but if Councillor Smith has moved it first, do we have an amendment to the resolution?
Yes, Councillor Smith can move an amendment that includes recommendation number 4 or 3 and 4, and see if there's a seconder.
Okay, so that's what we do first.
Amendment. Yeah.
So before is there any further discussion on there? And Councillor Smith, is that your resolution? Your
I'm happy to
amendment?
move the recommendations from the committee of whole with the deletion of number 3 and number 4. And,
Okay, so
yes, we vote on them separately.
yeah. So what Councillor Smith has made, that is there a seconder to remove recommendation 3 and 4? Councillor Donaldson, are you moving that?
Sure.
You want to remove recommendation 3 as well?
Sure.
Okay, so now that there's been an amendment to the motion, I need to ask for a vote on that. So I believe we better do a recorded vote.
I'm hearing you. I'm just writing at the same time. Sorry.
That's fair. No, it's a procedure and
Yeah.
new to.
Okay, Councillor Clark,
No, I don't support that.
Councillor Donaldson,
Yes.
and Councillor McKechnie,
No,
Councillor Smith,
Yes.
Councillor Wood Roberts,
No.
and Mayor Roberts.
No.
Okay, so that is not carried.
So now we'll go back to the original resolution, which is included in our package, which removes recommendation 4. And if you want, I'll read that one. It says, be it resolved that the recommendations from September 14, 2021 meeting of the Dice River Committee of the Whole be adopted by council with the exception of recommendation 4, which is to permit the execution of an electronic waste recycling collection and processing agreement with Green Tech. Is there a mover for that? So Councillor Clark and Councillor Wood Roberts. And for the sake of transparency, I think it's fair to ask for another recorded vote.
Sure. So Councillor Clark,
Yes, to support the study.
Councillor Donaldson,
No.
Councillor McKechnie,
yes,
Councillor Smith,
No.
Councillor Wood Roberts,
Yes.
and Mayor Roberts.
Yes. So
Okay.
that carries. Okay. It's a good lesson in procedure. And I appreciate everybody having their own individual opinions. That's the way it goes sometimes. We'll move into administration, which we have a winter maintenance agreement with the county, and that was discussed at our meeting. So this is just the bylaw for that. So I will just look for mover and seconder on this one. Councillor Donaldson, and seconded by Councillor Smith. Be it resolved that bylaw 2021-70 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of winter maintenance services agreement with the County of Haliburton be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signing the corporate seal attached here too. All in favor? That carries. Yep. And next is the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, of which Tamara will take over that and explain some of the training that she and some staff have had.
Thank you, Andrea. Well, basically, as you acknowledged at the beginning of the meeting, the federal government's declared September 30th as the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. It's going to be a federal statutory holiday. So at this point, it's not legislated by the province as a paid holiday. So municipal operations will continue, much like Remembrance Day is handled in a lot of places. Basically, we do plan to integrate awareness and training exercises into our operations going forward, hopefully on that day or as close to that day as possible, if it's on a weekend, with our staff and council, as well as throughout the year. The county has graciously purchased an Every Child Matters flag for each municipality and the county, and you can see it behind Andrea there. Mayor Roberts, sorry. And we hope to fly that flag tomorrow at the arena. We'll be replacing the pride flag that's there now with that one. And I'm not sure whether Mayor Roberts wants to be part of that flag raising or not. We can discuss that later. And then on September 10th and 13th, just a couple of weeks ago, 3 of us, the Director of Planning, our new Grants and Procurement Coordinator, and myself undertook 2 full days of training at Highlands East, led by Gary Pritchard from 4 Directions of Conservation Consulting from Curve Lake. It was very enlightening. We learned an awful lot about our responsibility, but not only the history of everything happening and the truth and reconciliation, but also about our duty to consult with the First Nations when we're doing major developments and so forth. So we'll be providing more information and education in this area going forward with council and hope to make arrangements. It's quite complex and we just touched the tip of the iceberg in 2 days. So can't really give it the whole thing right here. We also discussed land acknowledgements, and as you read this morning, Dysart had one read by Larry O'Connor at our inaugural session, and that was the last time. And the one you read this morning is from Curve Lake, read with their permission. And it's up to council whether you want to continue reading that at the beginning of each section. Mallory suggested perhaps we could put it on the agenda as a land acknowledgement at the beginning of each meeting to continue to raise awareness within the community on a regular basis. And the attached is the sample land acknowledgement if you want to review it in more detail. And there's also a media release there that was put out jointly by the county and the 4 municipalities yesterday to acknowledge this as well. Are there any questions?
Any questions to Tamara? Comments? Go ahead, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, and I appreciate the background, Tamara. One question. So the acknowledgement that the mayor read applied to Curve Lake, reference to Curve Lake. So the Curve Lake First Nations are, an area down closer to Peterborough. In fact, just Googling that is 20 kilometers northeast of Peterborough, includes Peninsula, Large Island, Fox Island, and Buckhorn Lake, and so forth. As you mentioned, we had one that Larry O'Connor had written for us in Dysart that was used at our inaugural meeting. And so I'm wondering about the appropriateness of referencing Curve Lake as opposed to one that, as I said, Larry O'Connor had written specific to Dysart.
Well, basically, through our discussions, through our training, we all discuss what's the most appropriate land acknowledgement, and you want to do something that has been approved by the First Nations. And that was one that was referenced that they had given their blessing basically to use in our meetings. So we thought, well, we'll start with that. And there may be more we learn through as we said, we're going to plan more training for council and staff, and maybe through that might want to modify things. And basically that's the answer.
But Tamara, why Curve Lake is to Councillor Smith's, is that not because?
That's our area.
Exactly.
That's our, yeah.
So Curve Lake, while we are not, Curve Lake is south of us by county. Remember, there were no boundaries, there were no lines in their minds. There still really aren't lines. There shouldn't be lines, but there are. And so Curve Lake is our closest First Nations area. And so that's how that came about. That's how the training came about through them, etc. I actually do have the land acknowledgement here that I asked Larry O'Connor. That was very important to me when in our inaugural ceremony. I have to say the one that was read by Larry is more poetic. So just for the sake of that, I'm going to read that because I have it right here. I'm going to read this one and we can work on what we want to say. I think the whole point of this is to be aware. There's been a bit of controversy by the federal government calling it a holiday. It doesn't mean that it's something to, we're all going to, blow up balloons and eat cake. It's not that kind of a holiday, but it's a real shame that it's taken 6 years and the discoveries of the graves over the summer to make this come to a head. It shouldn't have taken this long. It was a recommendation from 2015. And I think it's all of our obligation to acknowledge this land. So I'm going to read this other land acknowledgement that Larry O'Connor had done. Meetings of Dysart et al. Council are held on the traditional territories of the Michi-Sagig Mississaugas of Curve Lake and the Algonquins Golden Lake First Nations, and covered by Williams Treaty of 1923. We are all treaty people here in Canada for as long as the sun shines and the grass grows and the rivers flow. These ancestral homelands are more than the place where the Anishinaabe hunted, fished, gathered, and grew their food long before the settlers' arrival. These are the lands of many diverse Indigenous peoples that have welcomed us as their guest, and we start by paying them our respect. So while I read the one from First Nations of Curve Lake, because that was through Tamara's training, I technically like this better as poetic. So we can have that for discussion. And yes, I believe I can come on, is it Thursday we'll be doing the flag raising? Yep. Councillor Smith, go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate you reading the one that Larry wrote. I raised it because I had occasion a couple of months back to reach out to Larry. Someone had asked me for a Dysart recognized acknowledgement for use at a wedding they were holding on a local lake this past summer, and so I reached out to Larry, and he thought that one he had written was ideal for that purpose. And he is quite a well-known local spokesperson on this topic, and might I suggest that we reach out to him again and ask for his expert perspective in terms of one versus the other. I unfortunately don't know much about this topic, and appreciate his expertise and contribution to our community in this respect over the years, and so I'd like to at least know that somebody's asked him, for some input. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Tamara, go ahead.
I was just going to suggest that maybe through our training, we could work on fine-tune the land acknowledgement and ask more questions about it.
Like I say, I just reading them both, and maybe there's somewhere in between, but I do agree. Maybe Councillor Smith has asked if we could reach out to Larry O'Connor just for his sort of opinion on that. I like the one that the second one, the one that was sort of Dysart centric, but the fact is getting the words right, educating ourselves on what it really means, and what this day is. We can call it a holiday, but so is, we say Remembrance Day. It's not a day necessarily to be joyful. It's a day to acknowledge and learn, so we can grow. There's a fairly lengthy resolution, so unless there's any further discussion on this, I will read that and then ask for a mover and a seconder. And I have a tickle in my throat, so I hope I can get through it. Whereas the Truth and Reconciliation Commission released its final report on June 2nd, 2015, which included 94 calls to action to redress the legacy of residential schools and advance the process of Canadian reconciliation. And whereas the recent discoveries of remains and unmarked graves across Canada have led to increased calls for all levels of government to address the recommendations in the TRC's calls to action. And whereas all Canadian and all orders of government have a role to play in reconciliation, and whereas recommendation number 80 of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission called upon the federal government in collaboration with Aboriginal peoples to establish as a statutory holiday a National Day for Truth and Reconciliation to ensure that the public commemoration of the history and legacy of residential schools remains a vital component of the reconciliation process. And whereas the federal government has announced September 30th, 2021 as the first National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, also known as National Orange Shirt Day, and a statutory holiday. Therefore, be it resolved that the Council of the Municipality of Dysart et al. Does hereby commit to recognizing September 30th, 2021 as the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation by sharing stories of the residential school survivors, their families, and communities. Is there a mover and a seconder for that? Councillor Clark and Councillor Smith. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Thank you. And thank you, Tamara, for taking the training. We look forward to any further reports on that. So next we're going to go into finance. So Barbara. Do you want to go through, it's the bylaw, we already discussed the Family Health Center lease, so probably don't need to discuss that one. We just are passing the bylaw.
Yes,
So
so
move-
this is the bylaw to support the discussion at the committee of the whole, recommending that we extend the lease with the Family Medical Center for 10 years.
Okay, so mover and seconder for the bylaw, please. Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Wood Roberts. Be it resolved that bylaw 2021-72, being a bylaw to authorize a lease extension and amending agreement with the Halliburton Family Health Center at 7217 Alert Road, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached thereto. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. Now this will take some more discussion.
Okay, so going back to Committee of the Whole on August the 10th, there was a request for an update on the different funding initiatives. So this report here summarizes the grant for the Municipal Modernization Funding and the 2020 Safe Restart funding. So we also have here the COVID-19 recovery funding for municipalities as well. Currently, we've received $143,000 from that funding stream, of which we have not made any commitment. Basically, the purpose of that funding is for COVID-19 operating costs and pressures. So there is a detailed summary of the modernization and the Safe Restart grant money. And what I'll do is I'll just go through and review some of the updates, staff recommendations that are put forth to council today. One of the reasons staff is recommending some of the projects for the Municipal Modernization Fund is because there is an intake 3 that just got released and applications are due on the 19th of October with the condition that the initial Municipal Modernization funding has been either spent or allocated. So the total allocation from the last time we had reviewed the Municipal Modernization funding, we've had to allocate another $166,000. So what we've done here in the proposal is to increase the allocation to the strategic plan up to $50,000 from 25. Asset management plan remains the same. The integrated waste management plan, initially we had allocated $50,000. We've since learned that it will not come in at that dollar value. We're looking at roughly anywhere between $12,000 to $15,000. So what staff are recommending is the residual of that funding be allocated to the waste composition study. And we're looking at 4 seasons. So not only the fall proposal, but winter, spring, and summer. There's 2 new projects here that have been proposed from Public Works, one being the forward facing camera expansion, the AVL, for $65,000 and an automated flagger for $55,000. And then there is $2,000 that's allocated to accessibility documentation on the website. So with these new numbers, and they've been highlighted in yellow on the analysis, we have allocated the additional $166,000. And you'll see now that we have actually spent or committed the full $542,255 that was received in the initial grant funding back in March of 2019. The other grant that we also have is the Safe Restart. And so if we can move over to that analysis there. In October of 2020, we had received $475,400. And then there was another allocation in January of 2021 for $95,000. So at the end of 2020, we had spent $207,000 of the 475. And for 2021, we're proposing just under $234,000, which leaves a balance of $129,755. So these funds here, there is no hard deadline to have those spent. Again, they are referencing COVID operating costs and pressures. So there is still some leverage there to allocate those funds. So that concludes the report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. We do have the Director of Public Works on board to answer any questions regarding the forward-facing cameras and the automated flagger.
Okay, so there's a lot to digest here, and there's two different pots of money that we're talking about. So let's just, while we have Rob here, let's just sort of stay on the modernization funding. I do even want to come to the strategic plan, just reference that after, but we've got Rob here. So let's talk about the waste composition study first, because we have an allocation there of $60,000, and I'll look to see, because there was discussion earlier already in today's meeting, to see if that is supported. Would want to discuss it. Is there anyone that wanted to, Councillor Smith, did you want to speak to that?
Well, I was waiting for Rob to say something that I expressed my perspective earlier that, committing $60,000 in to this right now, we haven't even completed one study. As I noted earlier, we're leaving out probably the large sorts of organic waste, certainly in terms of a single stream, when we don't catch any of the commercial content. And as you alluded to, we've got three neighboring municipalities that are of a similar profile in terms of their waste, and so I just don't see the value of us analyzing our own waste and spending that amount of money there. I'd really prefer to see a good chunk of this at least allocated to some other modernization project, and so simple as that.
Okay, and the only reason I actually didn't turn to Rob first is because we already discussed it, so I didn't really think Rob probably had too much to add. John Watson would have put that in there, but Mallory, I do see that you have a question or a comment.
I just have a question for Councillor Smith. Did you say that you're leaving out organic waste in a waste composition study?
I didn't say we're leaving it out. We're leaving out the single largest source of organic waste in terms of a stream. So the bulk of the organic
you mean the commercial? Waste. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, when we don't analyze the commercial. It's the piles, and so those advocates for better handling, and I'd be one of them, for better handling of organic waste, who sent us photographs in the past. They're not sending us photographs that of a residual stream. They're sending us photographs of a single pile of organic waste that was placed in our landfill by some commercial establishment. Could have been a restaurant, a food store, what have you. And we're spending $60,000 here analyzing waste, and we're not going to capture any of that stuff. We're only capturing content coming from 100 vehicles that need to proclaim that they're there with residential waste as opposed to commercial waste. And then furthermore, they're analyzing in that content a lot of recycling, and come January 2024, recycling, we may not even be receiving it. Commercials could say we're set up our own facility. We don't know yet.
So, Councillor Smith, my understanding of that, we don't have John Watson on the screen right now, but was the amount of contaminated recycling. People are still not recycling correctly. They're putting in types of plastics that are not recyclable. They're putting in garbage in the recycle. So it's more of that type of an audit. So it is still important, because if we remember, he talked about the percentages. So for instance, if the threshold is 5% of contaminated, and we're currently at 10% of contaminated recycling. So I do see Councillor Clark. One, I just want to go to Barbara for clarification, and then Councillor Clark, it'll be you. If we took out the other 3 seasons, because we have passed resolution currently to do the fall, would that number then sit at $15,000, and we'd still have 45,000 at the bottom line, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So we would still obligated, because we passed that earlier today by a vote, but that's okay. So that 60 could turn into a deduction of only $15,000 if we postpone this decision. Councillor Clark.
Yeah, there's some huge implications here that I don't think are being properly considered. And as John Wasson had identified, if we have contaminated garbage, we're going to be paying a lot higher rate for that stuff to be shipped out. Going forward, we will not be landfilling things anymore. We're not allowed to do that. And so everything that comes in has got to go. And there's a huge difference in terms of the rates. So if we can get some analysis, we can get some education. There's some big bonuses or value to us being able to properly understand and manage, this whole component of our municipal service. Thank you.
Okay, I do think, excuse me, the waste audit is going to give us some hard information, but in light of the service delivery review meeting last week with the 4 townships and the county together, and the fact that we don't have to bring this fund to 0 today or obligate it to today, I would lean towards removing the other 3 seasons at this point until we had, and because we can still make that decision in January or February.
Mayor Roberts?
Yes.
The only difference is if you don't make the decision today, there's no opportunity to apply for the 3rd intake by October 19th. That's why the report's here. And if we don't spend all the money, we're not eligible to apply for the 3rd.
Okay, so pardon me for not having that clarification, but there are maybe other ways to, we're saying we're allocating it there. What if we find out that the other municipalities will participate? And our Councillor Smith brought up a point. This is a lot to throw at us when we are wanting, was an opportunity to, we have allocated quite a lot of it to things that have been very valuable, but I think it should be open to council to make the decision of how we allocate it.
No, certainly. We just wanted to bring it forward so that we made sure you had the best information in terms of the money available out there to go after if you wanted.
Okay, Councillor Smith, and then I'd like to hear from other councillors. This is
Well, if as I understand the semantics of this, the staff recommendation is that we at least get the funds allocated now, so we can apply for the next round. And who wants to miss out on free money? So I have no problem with that. And if you want to leave it allocated to the waste composition study for now, knowing that we're only approving the expenditure of $15,000, and then therefore reserve the opportunity later to reallocate the $45,000 to some other project, or if staff has got something else in right now from a modernization point of view, let's get that 45,000 allocated to whatever else may be on the list. Again, we're not approving it. All we've done is approve the expenditure of $15,000 on a waste composition study for the fall. So that may solve the immediate problem here right now. The immediate opportunity is let's get the funds fully allocated that we've already received so we can qualify for the next round of money that the province is apparently going to give out.
Yes, and I'm glad I brought that up because I clearly missed that in reading the report myself. I was sort of just looking at the numbers and I didn't fully understand that we do need to bring the allocation down to 0 to apply. And then in just reading that, it says that staff already have some ideas on where to, which we look forward to coming at future meetings. So in light of that, are other councillors comfortable with the modernization allocation at this point? I think that changes things, right? Okay. So strategic plan, we had put in 25 and we were just upping that to 50. Is that correct? And unfortunately, we just through staff shortages, time, the amount of work that the service delivery review at the county is still taking, et cetera. We have not started that this fall. So Tamara and I will be talking about a timeline on when we're going to start that process. There's nothing wrong with starting it in our last year, last of this term of council in our last year. In fact, we'll probably have, the best knowledge going forward on a plan for that. So, is there anything else? We're good with the Modernization Fund, and including Rob. We've got Rob here. Do we want to talk about the automatic flagger and the forward-facing cameras? We would like to ask Rob some questions on that, or ditto, put them in there. And anyone want to ask Rob a question? Rob, you want to talk about anything there? So certainly the forward-facing cameras was a goal for ours all along. To do it in one lump sum is getting up to date, so that's great. The flagger, a little different. Go ahead, Councillor Smith, and then Councillor Clark.
Well, thanks. Just on the flagger, Rob, I appreciate the report on that. The one thing that wasn't completely clear to me, there's certainly I'll say a safety consideration there, but is there also an efficiency? In other words, is there some, I'll call it cost justification associated with this automated flagger technology, the device there that you include the photograph of, where we could get by with a single flagger at a construction location as opposed to two?
Yes, that was an added benefit for this. In all honesty, these flagging devices were not on my radar at all up until this spring. My cohort in Minden Hills, Travis Wilson, organized a demonstration for all the lower tiers. A guy came up and showed us what they were all about, how they work. So we were certainly interested at that point. As part of the budget in 2021, we allocated for 6 seasonal employees. We only brought back the 5 from last year. We didn't hire the 6 strictly because of COVID. We weren't sure how we were going to get them around. So moving forward, what I would be proposing as part of the budget is to scrap that number 6 position out of the budget, replacing it with basically an automatic flagger that one person could operate. More or less having the site controlled by one flag person as opposed to 2. If we take that number 6 position out, excuse me, basically we're looking at about a 2-year payback on the seasonal salary. So, not only is this an opportunity to purchase one with, as you say, free money, we could pay for itself every 2 years.
Yeah. Okay. Well, great. Thank you. That to me crystallizes the reason to do this. It is free money, but even if it wasn't free money, spending this money, knowing that within 2 years we're past break even, and years 3, 4, and 5, and a device like this looks pretty rugged. It'll probably last for several years. It's a great investment, and so fully supportive. Thank you.
Great. Go ahead, Rob, and then Larry after.
Yeah, and I just want to be clear, it's going to be a bit of a learning curve. Nobody around us is using these. So, some of our roads, they may not be appropriate on. For instance, the Kinesis Lake Road in July might not be the best spot to use them. Some of the narrower roads may not be the best spot because, by the time people go around them, they might be in the ditch. So from our, we're going to have limitations on it, but I do think it's worthwhile investment.
Okay, Councillor Clark.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. Rob, yeah, it's a good plan to have something like that. It provides more sustainability for your operations delivery. COVID was a prime example of that, where you didn't have the staff to put out. And one of these things could very easily supplement work that's being done by your crews in the road, which is good. Also going forward, I think there's going to be more and more challenges with regard to staffing. And this just enables you to continue your operations with less hiccups. So I think it's a good thing. The AVL, are there advantages to having the forward facing? Is there any insurance things, or does it give us kind of a record of what's happening out on the road, or have you identified any real benefits for that, Rob?
What I can tell you is we do have a demo unit. So what you're seeing in that report is actually our vehicle. We had a demo unit in there, and we had a complaint last year that the road wasn't plowed, and I literally pulled it up and said, there it is, it's plowed. Yeah. you know, it's one thing to say that the vehicle was there. We do have sensors to say the plow's up, the plow's down, the spreader's on, but to have that picture, to me, yes, I think is a huge benefit. I will need to tighten down basically how often it takes the picture. They're not live, you know, because obviously a live feed would eat up huge data. But I do want to kind of tighten up how often it takes a picture, you know, whether it's a change in process. If the plow goes up, does it take a picture? Do you turn the spreader on? Does it take a picture? That kind of thing. But that money, that $65,000, that was kind of an estimate we had from our provider last year. So I'm not sure what's changed from the technology side, but I do want to bring something back to council that's a little tighter than just saying $65,000.
Now, Rob, is this equipment transferable from vehicle to vehicle, or is it?
Mostly, yes. Yeah.
And our insurers, are they made aware of this? I'm just wondering, is there an opportunity for a bit of a discount or whatever, given that if something happened and our insurers had to go to court to you know, defend something, having this would sure reduce the timeline that would be required for litigation. So
it's something, yeah, it's something we're gonna have to circle back with. I know when we put them in initially, the general feel was no, there would be no benefit to us. But to me, if you have that forward facing camera, that changes things a little bit. You know, it takes it above not knowing or knowing only where your vehicle is. This is what they're seeing. This is what the conditions were at the time. So
it just might be worth asking that question at some point in time, just to see if there is, you know, some kind of.
I wouldn't expect any huge benefits, but it's worth the question.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
to Tamara and Barbara, maybe we'll see if they have any comment on that question, or they can take that to our insurers. Barbara, go ahead.
So with the AVL expansion, it's basically the municipality completing their due diligence in terms of documentation should there ever be a claim that is presented to the municipality. I will check with the insurers, but I highly do not expect that there would be relief of insurance premium with the AVL expansion.
So perhaps not on the premium, but when we get a claim, when we have to, or if we have to fight something, it's evidence. So it's well worth it. And again, this is a good use of we're calling it free money. It was money that the provincial government gave us, but it's clearly demonstrating that this is in the scope of what they were envisioning, that each municipality would make their own decisions on what they needed to move themselves ahead. And these kind of pressures are hard to come into our regular budget based on property tax. It's a challenge. So is there anything else, Councillor Smith?
Just a note on that, the AVL, the service delivery review, the Dysart service delivery review highlighted that technology as something that other jurisdictions have had great success with in terms of you know, productivity, savings, effectiveness in terms of their service delivery. And you know, to me, that the arguments, the detail that were shared as part of that service delivery report were quite compelling. And so good for Roth for moving forward with that. It's a tangible step based on the money we spent on the service delivery review. So well done. Thank you.
Yep, I concur. So we sort of made a decision that's all good on the modernization, but also now we have the other funds up here. And so maybe we can just speak to those, which is one of the safe restart. And so Barbara, I'd maybe kick it off and ask you a question in terms of under the word committed. So on the page that's a safe restart, all those are estimates. Either we know we've spent them or estimates that we think are going to cost us. For instance, let's look at the arena lost ice revenue. So you're posting that at December 31st, 2021, your estimate for the 2021 full calendar year is another $100,000 loss.
Yes, and so these figures here, the items that are committed are based on our 2021 budget allocation as well.
Okay, so we won't know those real costs until until the year end is up for some of those, but others they really just are you know, best case scenarios of what we used to get for arena revenue to what we did actually receive for arena revenue. And so that will still leave us a balance of 129, almost $130,000. There's also opportunity, but we are fairly unlikely to, I can't think of anything else for other, if you fully spent the allocation of the safe restart, that there was funds to apply for other safe restart money, but we still have a balance.
Actually, on the safe restart there, I'm not aware of any contingency to spend that within a certain time frame to qualify for another grant under that stream. It's just the municipal modernization funding.
Okay, I did think that there was certainly there was talk that this was the first amount, and any amounts after that, it was pretty much in places that had like transportation systems and buses and
yeah. So
cities.
if I'm understanding your comment, in some of these streams here, they will allocate X number of dollars. If that is not enough for your municipality, you do have the opportunity to make an application for additional funds, but obviously you would have had to spend the initial funding, and I suspect that's more in the larger centers.
Yeah, so is there any questions on that? Councillor Smith?
Thank you. Just a quick question for Barbara on this. The local community centers, because they're municipally owned, when there's a provincial election, for example, we had to make the West Guildford Recreation Center available to the province for the provincial election. Received no revenue for that because there's provincial legislation that says when it's a municipally owned facility, they don't pay for use of that facility for election purposes. And I wonder on the same basis with this Safe Restart funding, the community centers incurred additional cleaning expenses. So last winter, for example, with every group that came in to play pickleball at the recreation center, we had to have a cleaner come in after that group before the next group could come in and play pickleball because of COVID. Stipulation. We would not normally have had a cleaner come in between pickleball session, except they had to do a disinfecting because of COVID. And it wouldn't have added up to thousands, but we collect $20 in revenue, and we basically paid out $20 to a cleaner to disinfect the facility before the next group could come in. Could we submit those receipts and qualify for use of some of this Safe Restart funding?
Well, to your point where when some of these groups come in to use the community center, there is a fee that the actual community center board, they keep that. They do not give that money to the municipality, which is used to mitigate some of the cleaning costs. Now, if there were any sort of, an increase in that service, specifically related to COVID, I would be open to look at that for 2021. But generally speaking, any revenues these centers, and this is the same with Harcourt Community Center as well, they get to keep the proceeds. If you recall, a couple of years ago, we transitioned some of the maintenance costs onto the Dysart Municipal operating budget. So I think there's got to be a little bit of a give and take there as well. But at the end of the day, if it's specifically COVID related, I'm open to look at that, the extra expenses there, because they would fit into the Safe Restart.
Okay, well, I'll suggest that they give you that. I mean, you're right that we Dysart do pay their heating and power bill, but the funds that they raise for rental revenue don't go into any individual pocket. They're used to do other improvements in the facility. Upgrading the kitchen, for example, is a project that the West Guildford facility has on their planning board, their planning horizon. We were talking last night about the need for a new floor in the kitchen. It's kind of urgent. If we spend all the rental revenue on COVID cleaning, there's no funds to pay for that kitchen floor, as an example. So, and clearly this was incremental. I'm not talking about the regular weekly cleaning. I'm talking about, as I said, an hour of pickleball. Somebody had to come in and spend 20 minutes disinfecting the facility before the next group could come in. And that was entirely COVID driven. Thank you.
Yeah. So, okay. So you can take that back. You still have other meeting and had that conversation and you can again send whatever you have directly to Barbara. So I am going to look for a mover and a seconder on the resolution that was included at the beginning of our report here, if I could, on this topic. Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor McKechnie. It resolved the council received the status update report for the Municipal Modernization Funding 2020 Safe Restart Funding and COVID-19 Recovery Funding for municipalities for information, and further that the residual balance of municipal modernization funding be allocated as proposed in the Municipal Modernization Reconciliation. All in favor? Okay, carried. So that concludes the finance section, and it is just 5 after 10. So if we get into planning, that'll take us and try to finish planning. That's not going to work because there'll be quite a bit of time in planning. So I'm wondering, Mallory, if we can do one of two things. I'll look to council. If councillors need a break now, it's no problem. We don't have a super long day. We can take a quick 10-minute bio break, top up coffees, etc., and then continue in order. Or we can go to section 7, which is minutes and recommendations from standing committees. Put up your hand if you would like a 10-minute break now. Okay, for the sake of even seeing one hand, we will do that. So I will recess and we'll reconvene at 10:15. Okay, we're back from our recess. And so now we will go in order and we will go to, looks like a fairly lengthy agenda, but most of them are fairly straightforward, I believe, in the planning and land information. So we're bringing in Chris and Jeff to the meeting. And the first item, 6A, I'll turn that over to you.
Thank you, and good morning, Mayor Roberts and members of council. The first item, file number LO7RO 2021-006 is a shore road allowance application for the lands of Chartrand on Benor Lake. Bylaw 2021-73 is a bylaw to close and convey the shore road allowance. Bylaw 2021-74 is a bylaw to deem lot 6 on registered plan 535 in the township of Harcourt not to be within a plan of subdivision, with the intent of merging lot 6 with the shore road allowance. The notice and circulation requirements for the application have been completed and no concerns have been raised. As per council direction, the screen porch has been removed. Therefore, staff recommend approval of both bylaws. Are there any questions?
Any questions to Jeff? No? Okay, very good. I will look for a mover and a seconder for this, please. Councillor Donaldson and seconded by Councillor Clark. Be it resolved that bylaw 2021-73, which is a bylaw to stop up, close, and convey a portion of the original Shore Road allowance in front of lot 25, concession 12, and part of lot 25, concession 12, designated as original allowance for road on plan 535 in the geographic township of Harcourt, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached thereto. And be it resolved that bylaw 2021-74, which is a bylaw to deem lot 6, registered plan 535 in the township of Harcourt, not to be within a plan of subdivision for the purpose of section 50-3 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, be amended, or as amended, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached thereto. This bylaw is intended to allow lot 6, registered plan 535, to merge with the road allowance which has been closed and conveyed pursuant to bylaw 2021-73. All in favor? Okay, carried. And moving on.
Yes, thank you. This application is to be deferred until the deck encroachment at the shoreline has been resolved. Notice of the bylaw was circulated for this meeting, which is the reason staff were obligated to include the draft bylaw on the agenda today. Staff continue to work with the applicants on their options to resolve the deck encroachment, and we'll bring the bylaw back in the near future. Is there any questions?
Any questions on this? So Mallory, we still move and second and defer?
No, there's no recommendation on the floor for this one. So
Okay, so that's how that works. We don't, okay. So everybody understand that? And the reason I asked Jeff prior to the meeting, these things have to come forward. I think the next application is similar, is because of notice of circulation, they, under the Municipal Act, Jeff, they have to be on the agenda. And so they're deferred until we have that information. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, said that right? All righty. So nothing there. And the next file?
Similar to the last file, notice of this bylaw was also provided. However, we have not received the deposited plan from the surveyor. Therefore, this application is to be deferred as well until staff have received that plan. Are there any questions on this file?
Seeing none. See, I told you things are just ticking along here. That's great. Okay, and the next one, purchase road allowance, shore road allowance.
Yes, file number L07RO 2021-015 is the resubmission of an application to purchase the shore road allowance that was previously closed due to inactivity in January of 2020. At the time of the previous application, council declared the shore road allowance surplus, subject to the removal of a deck and private cabin at the shore road allowance. The private cabin on the neighboring property has been removed. However, the deck remains. As you can see by the plan, the proposed lot line as it extends through the shore road allowance bisects the deck attached to the boathouse. Staff are recommending a condition that the deck be removed or brought into compliance similar to the previous direction of council. And I request direction from council pertaining to that deck and approval to process the application.
Okay, so questions to Jeff. We see the pictures there. It's going to be a bit tricky bringing it into compliance. But the other option is to remove. So any questions, Councillor Smith?
Well, I don't know why we wouldn't continue to demand that they bring it into compliance. That's a question of Jeff. Like, if you're looking for direction, I said, why would we not continue to demand that they bring this compliance before proceeding?
Staff agree. Specifically, our policies in the official plan are very clear with regards to protection of our shorelines, and that shoreline setbacks are to be strictly adhered to. So staff certainly recommend that it be removed or brought into compliance. But yes, I continue to ask that direction from council as per the policy.
Okay. Well, thanks for asking for our direction, and I'd be fully supportive of your recommendation that yes, they need to bring this into compliance before we're prepared to proceed with this matter.
And that is what it does say, to be removed or brought into compliance. So it would be very difficult, as I said earlier, to bring it into compliance. So, but I suppose there is one avenue for that if they wanted to. So I do look for a mover and a seconder then on this. Councillor Clark, seconder. Councillor Smith. Be it resolved that council approves for processing an application by Mr. and Mrs. Woods to purchase a portion of the shore road allowance along the shore of Halliburton Lake in front of their property in part lot 18, concession 10, lot 13, plan 438 in the geographic township of Harborne. Pursuant to section 3.2.7 of the official plan, the deck attached to the garage boathouse is to be removed or brought into compliance with the zoning bylaw, and these lands are declared surplus. All in favor? Okay, so it's carried. Next item under E. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. The next item is file number P11 RS 2021-002. Mr. and Mrs. Heyman and Mr. and Mrs. Mullen are owners of 2 properties on Drag Lake, have submitted a letter requesting council recognize the location of an existing private driveway and further grant permission to cross a 1-foot reserve to legalize access to their lands. As you may know, reserves are narrow strips of lands owned by the municipality and are basically used as access control tools. Blueberry Trail is a privately maintained road located on a municipal road allowance. Therefore, an entrance permit is not required. However, council permission is required to recognize the location of that driveway and provide legal access across that reserve. Staff request direction from council on this request, and I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have.
Any questions? I think it's pretty straightforward. No, I will look for mover seconder, please. Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Smith. Be it resolved that council recognizes the location of the existing private driveway and grants permission for said private driveway to cross the 1-foot reserve shown on Plan 620, further described as Part 1, Plan 19R-4628, as shown on the attached site plan. All in favor? Okay, carried. And waiving site plan control for Mediba.
Thank you. This is for file L04 WV 2021-003, lands of Mediba. The municipality has received a letter request to waive site plan control for 2 upcoming proposed developments located on the subject property. The applicant is planning to replace their building that houses their commercial kitchen and dishwashing room. The construction plans include demolishing the existing building and replacing it with a 5,000 square foot building that will overlap the existing footprint and just a little bit of an expansion for their dining hall and new kitchen and dishwashing room. In order to support the project, the applicant will also be constructing a temporary structure that will act as their dishwashing room, provides storage for the dry, refrigerated, and frozen foods, and make use of their food trailer as a temporary kitchen. The applicant would like to begin construction of the temporary structure this fall, with the demolition and new construction of the kitchen dishwashing room to begin in the spring of 2022. Just a little overview of the property. The property is well treed with mixed vegetation species and has significant elevation changes throughout the site. The subject property also has a stream, pond, and 2 wetland areas through the site. None of these features will be affected as a result of the proposal. The proposed building addition is not anticipated to impact the natural ecological features on the subject property, as development will occur in an already cleared area where there's existing development. Staff do not have any concerns with the proposed, however, request direction from council regarding the request to waive site plan control. If council decides to waive the site plan control, the recommended conditions may be appropriate for the proposed development of the subject property. And that concludes the presentation. If council has any questions.
Councillor Clark?
Yes, you, Madam Mayor. Chris, any information as to when these original buildings were put up? It's, it looks like it's quite a successful campus, been there for quite a while.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure of the date when the original structures were done, although the structures do have permitted building permits for them, and they'll have to go through for the new structures. They'll have to go through for the actual building permits as well.
Yeah, okay. And it looks like there's a good sized piece of property there, so there's no concerns about percentage of land use or anything like that. That looks of it.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
So I don't think that there's any concerns. I just want to I'll see you, Councillor Smith. I'll just congratulate Camp Mediba for yet again, improving their camp facilities there. I've been out to some meetings there. At one point, we were hoping to host a youth summit there that didn't get traction, so we weren't able to. But we'd had quite a bit of a touring of the facility there, and it's fantastic. So they're growing again, and congratulations to them. Councillor Smith?
Yeah, I was just going to, you've said a lot of it. This is an operation that goes back to the 1950s. And so, Councillor Clark, I'm not sure of the exact age of this particular building, but it would measure in decades, multiple decades. And as the mayor said, it's a great operation in our community. It's a tremendous number of just youth, but even adults come to leadership camps there and so forth. And they're very environmentally responsible. And so to them, and absolutely we should support this. Thank you.
Yeah, every once in a while you're cutting out, Councillor Smith, but I think we got the gist of what you were saying. And yep. So
my screen flashes that my internet connection is unstable. I don't know what I'm supposed to do about that, except I get a message telling me it's unstable.
I don't think there is anything you can do, but luckily you were supporting the project, and so am I. I've been on the site, the climbing wall. So if you look on the sort of middle picture, that is more of a zoom, and you zoom in on the biggest of the buildings with the brown roof, that is just like the most amazing two-story structure with the wall climbing unit inside, and that was a huge fundraising and project for them a few years ago. So it's great to see that they're economically viable, growing, and making their camp a better place. So I'll look for a mover and a seconder for this. Councillor Smith and Councillor McKechnie. Be it resolved that council waives the requirement for site plan approval with respect to the proposed development as submitted for the lands of Mediba, legally described as Lot 6, Concession 5 in the geographic township of Guildford, Municipality of Dysart et al., and that the development is to be located as shown on the proposed site plan and is subject to the following conditions. Number 1, registered owner to pay any outstanding tax. 2, registered owner to pay all administration fees owed to the Municipality of Dysart et al. 3, that the proposed be developed in accordance with the municipal zoning bylaw 2005-120. 4, subject to building permit approvals through the Municipality of Dysart et al. Building Department for the proposed and temporary structures. And finally, number 5, subject to approval letter from the Ministry of Environment to confirm septic capacity for the increased use of the proposed addition. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. And a pre-consultation application for lands. Is this Chris also?
Yep. So this is for file D00SV 2021-015 lands of Vanderstar. The applicant is proposing to sever the subject property, resulting in one retained parcel and one severed parcel. The proposed retained lot will be conveyed and merged with the proposed benefiting lot for a lot addition only. No new lots are being created as a result of the proposed consent application. The proposed severed lot is well treed with a mix of deciduous and coniferous vegetation, and with frontage onto Harburn Road. The lot has an open area which currently stores a motorhome, shipping container, and storage shed. The owner has confirmed that the property will be brought into compliance with removing the contents structures on the property. A condition was added to ensure that the proposed severed lot is brought into compliance with the municipal zoning bylaw. The proposed retained lot will be conveyed and merged with the proposed benefiting lot as a result of this application. The proposed lot is well vegetated with a wetland feature through the north portion of the property. And the proposed benefiting lot is currently developed with an open area of the property with a single family dwelling, accessory garage, shed, lumber storage, school bus shelter, and a garden shed and ice hut. And access is over the municipal unopened road allowance of Bogner Road. The lands are also well vegetated as well. It is staff's opinion, subject to the approval of the scoped EIS and recommendations. The proposal is consistent with the PPS, generally conforms with the provisions of the municipal official plan. The recommended conditions of the approval are noted in the first section of this report. And that concludes the presentation. If there's any questions.
Any questions to Chris? They're just merging one piece with the other piece, right? It's not a new, like you say, it's not a new lot.
That's correct. They're just severing, so the portion on Harburn Road remains as the rural residential, and then taking the retained lands that are left over and then merging it with their benefiting lot, which they already own. So they own both properties. They're just sort of moving lands around, but it's not creating any new lots.
Moving lot lines. Okay, so any questions to Chris? None. I'll look for mover seconder. Councillor Clark, Councillor Wood Roberts. This is a lengthy one. Be it resolved that council support the general principle of this consent proposal for file number D00-SV-2021-015 on part of lot 27, concession 10, in part of lot 26, concession 10 in the geographic township of Dysart, municipality of Dysart et al. For lot addition, subject to the following conditions and the comments received through the public review process. 1, registered owner to obtain an entrance permit through the municipality of Dysart et al. For the proposed severed lot and benefiting lot. 2, subject to a zoning bylaw amendment to the satisfaction of the municipality of Dysart et al. For the proposed retained lot and benefiting lot. 3 is subject to the submission of the County of Haliburton of a scope environmental impact study to address the wetland areas on the subject land. 4, the proposed consent is for the purpose of a lot addition only for benefiting lands 013-000-04300. Number 5, the registered owner is to bring the proposed severed lot into compliance with the municipal zoning bylaws to the satisfaction of the municipality of Dysart et al. Related to existing structures located on the proposed severed lot. 6, the registered owners to pay any outstanding taxes. 7, subject to payment of all administration fees owed to the municipality. And finally, 8 is prior to endorsement of the deed, the land division committee is to receive a clearance letter from the municipality confirming that conditions 1 through 7 have been fulfilled, and the applicant is to make a request to the municipality for said letter. All in favor? I think planning should, all of that's carried. Planning should read their own resolutions. That's all. Oh, come on. Look at the next one. Okay, carry on.
Thank you. This is for file D00SV 2021-009, Lance Parker. The applicant is proposing to sever approximately 2.8 hectares of the proposed severed lot to be conveyed and merged with the proposed benefiting lot as identified on the attached sketch. No new lots are being created as a result of the proposed application. The proposed severed lot is well treed with a mix of deciduous and coniferous vegetation and is bound by Highway 118 to the north and a wetland feature along the south of the proposed lot. The applicant is required to submit a site evaluation report with a scoped environmental impact study to demonstrate that the proposed retained lot has developable building envelope that will not negatively impact the adjacent wetland feature and accurately delineate the boundary of the feature. The proposed retained lot is being proposed to be conveyed and merged with the proposed benefiting lot. This portion of the property is also well vegetated with the wetland feature along the north of the proposed lot. The proposed benefiting lot is currently developed on an open area of the property with a single family dwelling and accessory barn structure, which currently houses 2 horses. These lands are also well vegetated and have some steep slopes towards the rear of the property as identified on municipal mapping. It is staff's opinion that subject to the approval of the site evaluation report and the implementation of the recommendations of this report, the proposal is consistent with the PPS and generally conforms with the provisions of the official plan. The recommended conditions of the approval are noted in the first section of the report, and that concludes presentation. And sorry for the long resolution.
It's okay. It's planning for you. Any questions? Comments? Mover, seconder. Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor McKechnie. However, I believe it is legal that I have to read it all, or somebody has to read it all. So I will. Bear with me. Be it resolved that council supports the general principle of this consent proposal for file number D00SV 2021-009 on concession 6, part lot 22, part 1, registered plan 19R 781, geographic township of Dysart, municipality of Dysart et al. For lot addition, subject to the following conditions and comments received to the public review process. 1, registered owner to obtain an entrance permit through the Ministry of Transportation or provide confirmation of legal access for the proposed retained lot. 2, subject to the submission of the County of Haliburton of a completed site evaluation report to meet the requirements of section 17.5.3 of the Dysart et al. Official plan. 3 is subject to the submission to the County of Haliburton of a scoped environmental impact study to address and accurately delineate the wetland area features on the subject lands. 4, the registered owner is to submit a site development plan for the proposed retained lot prepared by a surveyor and based upon the recommendations of the site evaluation report and scoped environmental impact study. 5, the registered owner is to enter into a severance agreement pursuant to section 51-26 of the Planning Act to address all planning matters to include recommendations of the site evaluation report or as required by the scoped EIS. 6 is the registered owner to pay any outstanding taxes. Number 7, subject to payment of all administration fees owed to the municipality. And 8, prior to the endorsement of the deed, the Land Division Committee is to receive a clearance letter from the municipality confirming that conditions 1 through 7 have been fulfilled. The applicant is to make a request to the municipality for said letter. All in favor? Carried.
Okay, we're on to the next one, which is file D00SV 2021-013, Lands of Can. The application is proposing to sever the subject property, resulting in 1 retained parcel and 1 severed parcel. The subject lands were previously created through a previous severance application 8029-15 and H030-15. The subject property is waterfront residential and has frontage on Quagma Lake, which is a lake trout lake that is not at capacity. The subject property is currently vacant and well vegetated. Based on Ontario mapping, the maps and aerial photography, the property shows moderate to steep slopes that are identified within an area of use limitation and are subject to 9.1.2 of the official plan. The site evaluation report is required to assess the slopes and the natural features of the area and make recommendations for the proper development of the lot and specifically assess the following: the location of the building and septic envelope, location of the docking envelope, site drainage, wildlife and fish habitat, including any threatened and endangered species, and the slopes on the property, which are within an area of use limitation as identified by section 9.1.2 of the official plan. It is staff's opinion that the proposed will be consistent with the provincial policy statement and generally conform with the provisions of the official plan, subject to the approval of a site evaluation report and the implementation of the recommendations as outlined in the report. The recommendations The recommended conditions of the approval are noted in the first section of the report, and that concludes the presentation. If council has any questions, and again, this is a long resolution. Sorry about that.
That's okay. Are there any questions to Chris? So go ahead, Councillor Smith.
Yeah, thank you. Chris, I know this is only pre-consultation, but I'm curious as to why we would be approving the creation of lots which don't meet either the minimum area or the minimum waterfront frontage distances from our official plan.
So that's why we're requesting the site evaluation report to double check that. So based on zoning, if it's not within an area use limitation, it does meet the zoning, but based on if it is within an area use limitation, the frontages require a larger frontage, which then the proposed does not meet that frontage. So that's why the request for the site evaluation report to confirm those slopes and to identify building envelopes prior to any of, I guess, the approvals for this. So hopefully that addresses the question that you had.
Jeff's got an additional comment there.
Yeah, in addition, if you don't mind me adding, there's also the proposed condition that that the application will be subject to a zoning bylaw amendment if required to the satisfaction of the municipality. So the data we have is unclear whether this is an area of use limitation, but it looks like it. So once we have that information, if it is indeed an area of use limitation, they will be required to go through a zoning bylaw amendment. And at that time, council will have the opportunity to either approve or not approve that zoning.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Smith? Or not really?
That component of it, thank you. The other consideration is the parking. There's a Dysart owned parking lot at the end of County Road 8 there that today I'll have lots of empty spaces in it, but when you go there during a summer weekend, people, that lot is full and people are parked on the private road that runs off there. They're parked on the side of the county road. And so we would just be adding more volume to that area. And so I note the need to confirm sufficient area to accommodate 2 new parking spaces. But it already experiences challenges.
So I had concerns with the parking as well. Just see if staff want to comment on that, and then we'll go to Councillor Clark.
Yeah, I think basically the conditions that we've imposed are for them to identify that. This is typically through our official plan. So I'm not aware of that location as to if there were concerns with parking, but if there is, I don't know, Jeff, if you have any further comments related to that. We're just basing these conditions on the official plan, what would be required for them to identify that they have sufficient parking retained for their property.
Yeah, historically, this is one of the few, if not the only, municipal parking lot that we've allowed waterfront property owners to use through this method by either paying cash in lieu of parking to the municipality for parking spots at that parking lot. Therefore, Chris has included that condition that an OLS must confirm that there is sufficient parking there. If not, as per the condition number 3, then they are required to provide mainland parking.
Okay, Councillor Clark, did you want to add a different question?
Yeah, that was just to follow up on that piece about the I guess the deeded access to parking on the mainland, I guess is what I had noted there. I've got some experience in, we had a cottage on an island down in Gull for years and years, and to be able to move that cottage, it became necessary that you had to have, a dock or some kind of shoreline access, and they would not permit a property unless that was there. So this is very much similar. They've got to have something on the mainland. But I take it that this deeded access, it would address that item, Jeff?
Correct. And as per condition number 6, the applicant will be required to enter into a severance agreement. So access will be encompassed in that severance agreement, whatever method is determined to be access, whether it's at that lot or they need to find their own mainland parking.
So they've got quite a few things to prove, if you will, or to do at this point. That's how I look at it. Any further questions? If not, I'm going to, just for the sake of me not talking so much, I'm actually got a little tickle. Can I flip that back to you, Chris, to read? I'll look for a mover and a seconder, if that's okay. Do you mind? You're such a good reader. Okay, so let me look for a mover and a seconder on this resolution. Councillor Clark and Councillor McKechnie.
Okay. So be it resolved that council support the general principle of this consent proposal for file number D00SV 2021-013 on property legally described as Havelock Part Lot 6, Part Road Allowance Concession 13, Part 1 Registered Plan 19R 1714, Part 6 Registered Plan 19R 5467, in the geographic township of Havelock, municipality of Dysart et al., resulting in 1 retained lot and 1 severed lot, subject to the following conditions and comments received through the public review process. Subject to 5% parkland dedication or cash in lieu at $1,000 for the severed parcel. The applicant is to confirm that there is sufficient parking at the municipal parking lot at the end of the County Road 8 by providing survey information from an OLS that compares the development area of the lot to the property boundaries. If there is any sufficient area to accommodate 2 new parking spaces, 2 for the new lot, then the applicant is to pay cash in lieu of parking at $2,000 per severed parcel, $1,000 per space, for the use of mainland parking at the municipal access point. If there is not sufficient area to accommodate the additional parking, the applicant is to demonstrate that they have deeded main parking and docking facilities. Number 3, the registered owner for both the severed and retained parcels must provide proof of exclusive deeded access to vehicle parking and trailer parking, which meets the requirements of section 4.7.5 of the Dysart et al. Official plan. Number 4, subject to the submission to the County of Haliburton, a complete site evaluation report to meet the requirements of section 17.5.3 of the Dysart et al. Official plan. Number 5, subject to the submission of a site development plan for the severed and retained parcels prepared by a surveyor and based upon the recommendations of the site evaluation report. Number 6, the registered owner is to enter into a severance agreement pursuant to section 5126 of the Planning Act to address all planning matters, including but not limited to the conditions of water access and recommendations of the site evaluation report. Number 7, subject to a zoning bylaw amendment to rezone the property subject to the zoning bylaw amendment, if applicable, to rezone the proposed severed and retained lots to implement the recommendations of the SER, and the registered owner to pay any outstanding taxes. And subject to payment of all, number 9 will be subject to payment of all the fees owed to the municipality at all. Sorry, and I'm just going on to the rest of my resolution here. And then prior to endorsement of the deeds, the Land Division Committee is to receive a clearance letter from the municipality confirming that conditions 1 through 9 have been fulfilled. The applicant is to make the request to the municipality for said letter.
Thank you very much, Chris. Saved my throat a little bit. You did a fine job. We've had a mover and a seconder on that. I'll ask all in favor. And that carries. Thank you very much. That concludes planning for today. So thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Chris. And we'll see you later.
Thank you.
So the last thing we have on our open agenda is minutes and recommendations from standing committees. And we will go to the draft committee of the whole minutes are there. I'll just ask for a mover and a seconder for those. Councillor Wood Robertson, seconded by Councillor Smith. Be it resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the draft minutes of the September 14th, 2021 Committee of the Whole as information. All in favor? Okay, and that's carried. Next, we have Glee Park and Museum Committee minutes, pardon me. We'll stall there. From that particular meeting, both the Councillor Wood Roberts and Councillor Donaldson were absent. I know you're both working one a business and one other jobs, but and it is a challenge being a councillor in a small town and having meetings at 2 o'clock in the afternoon when you are when you have other responsibilities. But I did attend that meeting, and Jim Blake chaired the meeting. So I just, if there's anything that any councillors want to ask questions on that, on those minutes. I just want to personally thank Mike Darlington, who lives in that area and uses Glebe Park pretty much more than anybody I know, whether it be mountain biking or the snowshoeing or cross country skiing, and for all his volunteer efforts and work in there that he's doing on the new mountain bike trails, but also he's been doing work on the snowshoe trails, and he's been spray painting trees as opposed to with little markers, colored mark, as opposed to any tagging, which the plastic ends up falling off in the snow and that. Also to note that the sculpture forest is number 2 on, it doesn't say that in there, but when you do a TripAdvisor or things to do in Haliburton, meaning the village, not the county, well, maybe even in the county, but it pops up as number 2. Haliburton Forest is still sitting at 1, but the sculpture forest and staff, our park staff have worked really, really well with them to do some of the work that we said we would obligate to do with the sculpture forest. So if you haven't been in there in a while, there's lots happening there. So I'll look for a mover and a seconder for those minutes. Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Donaldson. Be resolved that council acknowledges receipt of the draft minutes from the August 12th Glebe Park and Museum Committee as information. All in favor? Okay, and that's carried. I should also, pardon me, as before I move on and just seeing Tim Haggerty's name there, he's on that committee, and he's been working with Kate Butler on repairs at the Reed House and what's needed there. So I'm thank the volunteers that we have on those committees, the public members, for that. So next is the Cultural Resource Committee meeting from, there was 2, August 26th and a special meeting September 16th. Councillor Donaldson, is there anything you want to highlight there?
I mean, it's in the minutes there, but the last one that we just had was just letting us know that the athletes picked the artist, and it's all in motion, and should be, everybody should see them on the murals by next May, I think. It was so awesome. It was done so fast.
And in the fundraising goal, I'm not sure, I haven't checked the GoFundMe page and combined with the people that have donated directly to the municipality, but is it looking like there is sufficient funds?
Oh yes, they have no problems with that. They were, I think they were over their goal, but then they had to add a little bit more for maybe installation, and so they had no thoughts that they wouldn't meet their goal.
Again, thanks to the students for bringing that forward, and particularly the teacher, Marina Tomazino. I'm not saying that right. Tomazino, pardon me, Marina, if I'm getting your name incorrectly. There are so many people on that fundraising committee. I attended a couple of the meetings, and they were just, they used every connection and worked really, really hard to get that word out. I did help some students go to Canoe FM and record a message for the fundraising committee. A couple of the students volunteered to do that. So it's really been an amazing thing, and look forward to seeing when the murals are up in the spring. I think Councillor Smith, you had a hand, did I see?
Yeah, thanks. Just a quick question on this, and it's been great to see the success that they've had from a fundraising point of view for these two new murals. I worry that we'll get these two new ones up, and the existing ones are, continuing to age and will, appear inadequate, if you like, compared to the new ones. And has the committee talked about that? What are the related implications, if you like?
You can take that, Tammy, if you have anything to add, but I know Tamara has been looking into that a little bit, and we're aware that they need some repair and some maintenance.
Yes, let Tamara do it. Yeah, they do know that, and I think Tamara, you can speak to that.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to the committee more, maybe, because there, as Councillor Smith noted, there's some peeling and it's not in places where we can fix. It's going to take someone with an artistic hand to get it back into shape. The difference is the current artists are doing it not right up on the walls. The current players are right on the concrete blocks. So it's a different skill set maybe, or you'd have to get up on ladders to do it. So I'm not sure if the same artists that are working would be interested in working with us to fix those up or not, but I certainly like to inquire about that.
So maybe Tamara, you could be in touch with Jim Blake, has the name of the artist, and if at all possible. And as you mentioned, it was decided, and even just due to the age of the building, what if something happens, to the building and it's, or whichever, the painting on the concrete blocks wasn't ideal. So painting on panels in temperature controlled areas and then putting up the panels would be a better option for the murals. So can we leave it with you to maybe contact Jim Blake? I don't think that's going to be out of the fundraised portion. It's just maybe a municipal responsibility to update what we have there. Any further comments on the minutes from the 2 Cultural Resource Committee meetings? If not, I will look for mover seconder. Councillor Donaldson. And seconded by Councillor Wood Roberts. Be it resolved that Council acknowledges receipt of the following draft meeting minutes. Cultural Resource Committee meeting from August 26th and also from September 16th, 2021. All in favor? Okay, that's carried. And then come of that, there was a subcommittee that was looking about the Sam Slick Park, and they met several times, did a lot of research. And I don't know who's speaking to that because this is from Kate, but maybe Tamara, I don't know, did you want to speak to it, or we just read the report and it's in there what the recommendation is?
I haven't been at the meetings, so.
No, I just didn't know I didn't know because you will have to approve all the reports and Kate's not with us today.
Certainly I can go through it.
So the recommendations there.
Which councillor is on the committee for this?
Well, because it was a subcommittee of the Culture Resource Committee, I was not on it. I don't know if there was any municipal representation. And Kate was the staff. So anyway, if there aren't questions, we can simply move in second and pass the recommendation. It doesn't appear that there are questions. It appears we may be in support of that. Councillor Smith.
And it's not a question, I guess, given there's really no way to answer the question, but there's a statement here about a possible future expenditure for the creation of a new interpretive panel. I wasn't sure exactly what that meant. There's a suggestion up above that we may have something that is intended to, I don't know, either explain or apologize for the previous use of the name Sam Slick Park. But I guess I personally had some reservations about that. And so I don't know if anybody can explain what they got in mind there.
And is that into the background part? It's not in the actual resolution, is it? Sorry, can you just,
Well, it's not in the resolution, but it's in the report there under financial impact is where they
okay,
introduce this concept of a possible small future expenditure for the creation of a new interpretive panel. But it, you know,
Mayor,
so
sorry.
Mallory, go ahead.
I just want to point out that under financial impact, it's noted that that small expenditure would come out of the cultural resources budget. So it was be within the committee's budget possibly.
I understand that, but that doesn't necessarily, mean the idea.
I think perhaps, and I sit on the cultural resource as ex officio and Councillor Donaldson and Councillor Wood Roberts. So I think that we would request the Cultural Resource Committee to approve anything. It would need approval from council if they were going to do anything further in that area. I think that would be fair, even though it's within their budget. It's, we can approve the recommendation as of today. It looks like park staff can do that. And that's limited cost there. But any further future expenditure, whatever they're talking about, as per Councillor Smith's, I understand what he's saying. I think we would need that to come to council, not just be within the purview of Cultural Resource Committee. So that's why we have councillors on committees. Councillor McKechnie.
Yeah, I don't know Sam Slick, needless to say. And it's been called that park for a long time. Of course, I might look at things differently. It's been a long time, and I know that a lot of things have changed in our world. Tearing down, changing names. Well, I think we've all learned by mistakes, whatever Sam did, who's found out his mistakes today. I just question the changing of the name at this time.
I do think that the subcommittee met several times and they took this very seriously. I did read, so Sam Slick is a character. He's not a person. He's a character out of what's a series of articles, which became a book by Thomas Chandler Halliburton, who actually never visited Halliburton, but that is who the county and our town is named after. And so, but Sam Slick, those books were written in 1830s, I believe. The Clockmakers, something about the Clockmaker. Like I say, I read half of it, but it's not easy to read things that were written 200 years ago. There's a different tempo of language, etc. So,
We're so perfect today.
No, but like you say, we now have information, so that we do have information. So that was their recommendation, and we do not have to heed their recommendation, but I'll just suffice, I wasn't on that committee, that they have put a lot of effort into it and feel that this is the best way going forward.
I just worry what's next they're going to change.
Well, we won't know, fortunately, until we know. Councillor Smith?
Well, I think Councillor McKechnie raises an excellent point, and that's why I interpreted instead of changing the name of the park, they're simply consolidating, what I'll call two park areas into the single name of Head Lake Park, and so to me, that was an acceptable step. I raised the point about the interpretive panel because I think that Councillor McKechnie and I share the same concerns here that, I don't want somebody next coming forward with a proposal that we change the name of the village of Halliburton or the county of Halliburton because of what Thomas Chandler Halliburton wrote 200 years ago. This is a slippery slope. There's actually some foolishness going on now in my own opinion, with people ripping down statues of Sir John A. Macdonald. People, Toronto, they're spending $1 million changing the name of Dundas Street. Most people didn't know what Dundas Street was named after. And that's just plain foolish. And so, you know, not having been involved in the committee's discussions, but if the committee was, you know, kind of trying to sidestep that, and as I said, they're not changing the name of the park, they're consolidating 2 park areas and calling it Head Lake Park. I'm okay with that. Don't put up an interpretive panel later apologizing for the use of Sam Slick's name, and don't think that this is the beginning of a slippery slope that, as I said, will take away the name Halliburton, for example, which is you know, the same foolishness some other communities are doing. So,
Yep, you're just lagging a little bit there. I'll just give you opportunity if you wanted to finish your sentence there. Okay, I think Councillor Smith, you are getting that little garbled. Listen, I was one of the few people at the beginning that at least attempted to read the book. Sam Slick said a lot of things, but he said a lot of things about women and Yankees and all kinds of people. He was intended, in my mind, to be a character who was a caricature of what you know, like the snake oil salesman. And he was pretty proud of himself because he sold a clock to somebody for $40 and it cost $4. And so was it a caricature and not intentionally harmful? But anyway, we don't have to pass this resolution. I'm going to look to the rest of council, what they want to do. We as a council tasked the Cultural Resource Committee to look after this. The Cultural Resource Committee tasked a subcommittee. Perhaps council doesn't feel that they have enough information to want to make this recommendation right or pass this recommendation right now. I don't know. I'm going to look for consensus here. Councillor Clark?
Yeah, we asked the subcommittee to take a look at this, and they've deemed, you know, and each of these situations is looked at on its own merits or concerns. You know, we asked them to do a job. They did. They come back with a recommendation. I think we should support that recommendation.
Okay. Councillor Donaldson or Councillor Wood Roberts, I know you're on this, even though you're not on this subcommittee. Is there anything, Councillor Wood Roberts, that you want to add?
Again, as Larry said, they were with a chore to do, and so Head Lake Park, it's just a carry on through with the walkway, and it's a minimal cost, and I would just leave it at that.
And you did cut out a little bit there, but you're in support of Councillor Clark's accepting the recommendation.
Yes.
From the subcommittee. Okay.
There's sensitivities to everything in the world. It just depends on each person's interpretation. So we asked them their opinion, and they did some research, and this is the answer that comes up with. So we have to respect that.
Anyone else want Councillor McKechnie?
I'm not looking for a big argument here, but I'm very concerned about our future. I mean, this perfect world that we're all not perfect, and needless to say, the character Sam Slick wasn't. So, like Councillor Smith said, what I'm saying is, what's next? This perfect world that people want Walt McKechnie to live in, it doesn't exist in Walt McKechnie's life. I don't know what we're trying to accomplish by this. That's all I'm saying. I think in some way the name Sam Slick should still be part of the park, and if you want to put Head Lake Park in front of it, fine. But I hate getting rid of our past and our history. So thank you very much.
Okay, I think the thought was from the subcommittee that Sam Slick was racist. The comments that he made was racist. So thereby having, even though he was a caricature, it's a character in a book, not a real person, but that it is condoning something that we now know today is not right. So that's the difference. And I agree, we don't want to take these things too far, but they have to be, everybody's going to have their own opinion and interpretation. So we have 2 councillors that are ready to approve the recommendation. Councillor Donaldson, do you want to weigh in?
Well, it could go either way. Like those are both really good comments, and definitely that book is a sign of history of, I mean, people or even like the next generation that went to read that even now is like, oh my goodness, look what happened way back then, or what they thought was normal compared to now. So it is kind of a history lesson. I'm reading that book. And both have merits on why to leave it and why to take the name out. So it's I'm not helping at all, I know, but I can see both sides of why you should and why you shouldn't. So I am not too sure here, but we did council did recommend that they go to the Cultural Resource Committee to come up with what they wanted to recommend after they did their research. So since council sent that to them, that's what they come back with. So I'm kind of siding on, they did the research and they come up with what they've proposed. And
So
I guess
there's-
it's up to us.
And don't worry, I'm feeling exactly the same way. And I right from the get-go, I was sort of pushing back in the Cultural Resource Committee, and not saying what's the big deal, but you know, a little bit to Councillor McKechnie and Councillor Smith. How far do you go with this? Tearing down statues and changing names of places and streets, etc. You know, I've read a lot of books like Uncle Tom's Cabin, which is a first you know, written in 1852, and that is a book that is also very historical and uses the N word, etc. One of the recommendations I thought that they could have made would be to have a additional plaque beside the name Sam Slick explaining that the cultural sensitivity, and that, you know, that there could have been a little proviso and explanation, as opposed to it's now not, we're taking off that name, we're not calling it that anymore, we're going to sort of wipe it out like it never happened. That to come up with some kind of a secondary plaque explaining where we are today in 2021, and understanding that this is not the way we feel now towards different cultures. It's not what we call people now. So that is also something. This is a subcommittee of a committee. We have a choice. We do not need to take the recommendation. We can task them back with finding an alternate way to still address, because there are concerns. I think that we have to put on the table. There are concerns there, but maybe there's another way to deal with it. So, Councillor McKechnie.
Yeah, I'll just say one more thing. I like Sam Slick, you're saying he was just a character, but somebody wrote all kinds of bad things, which is happening. Like, we're going to be eliminating a lot of things in our world if Sam's going to get eliminated for writing bad things back 200 years ago or whatever, 100 years ago. What about the guy Chandler? They tell me he was a real bad guy. So that mean Halliburton's going to go too? I don't think so. At least that's my opinion. Thank you.
Councillor Smith, do you want to add to that?
I don't want a precedent set here.
Okay.
In our municipality.
Okay, Councillor Smith.
I was going to make a suggestion, and I understand there was a subcommittee appointed by the Cultural Committee, and they came up with this recommendation. Some people seem to think that simply because we're involved in the appointment of the committee that we need to endorse their recommendations or accept their recommendations. I don't agree with that. Council has to make its own decision. This subcommittee could give input, and maybe a more appropriate step right now, as opposed to simply approving this, would be to have this subcommittee appear before council as a delegation, as we so often do with the public, and offer some background so that we could make a fully informed decision, as opposed to one that we're doing right now, which is based on it really just says, here's the recommendation. It doesn't explain the rationale. And so, as I said, maybe that would be a more appropriate step today, as opposed to simply rubber stamping, which is what some people are advocating for. I don't think that's appropriate.
Well, and I think one of the thoughts was that the recommendation could have been that they had an additional plaque beside the Sam Slick plaque explaining where we're at today, and that the municipality of Dysart is a welcoming, non-discriminatory place, and Sam Slick was a character, and is no way like, I'm not coming up with the words right now in the council meeting on a microphone to be recorded, but there could have been something else. Let's just say that. And so whether I don't know if we have the whole subcommittee, we could task the subcommittee meet again, and that Kate Butler, who's their staff, she can report back to council committee of the whole, or when they're able to meet again. And why don't we just leave this for now? We don't have to make a decision today. Either way. Councillor Wood Roberts?
I was just looking back through some stuff, and I want to quote Shelley Shell. She said, "What is correct and what is culturally appropriate changes as time goes by. Qualifying or a disclaiming statement that could address that issue that would relay the current sensitivity but not eradicate history." So I think she nailed it in a nutshell there. So I think that no decision is fine for today.
Mm-hmm.
And perhaps cultural resources, due to the sensitive nature of this issue, could come up with some sort of disclaimer to add to that.
Okay, so we could have a different resolution, or do we have to, because I don't have this moved in second, I don't even have to, I haven't read the resolution, Mallory. Could we have a new resolution that we task the Cultural Resource Committee and or subcommittee to come up with an alternate solution, an alternate?
Yeah, I think they need better direction than that. I mean, they've given opinion. Councillor Smith gave the suggestion that they come and give delegation, and perhaps a conversation between a representative and council could come out with something, because I don't think council's unified on what they want moving forward, really.
Yeah, I don't think either, but I just don't know that a whole subcommittee of that are going to be able to come. I think they need to be tasked to meet again with direction that we look to not eliminate the name Sam Slick, but to have an alternate, more of it. I can't find the words.
Mayor Roberts, could they be given the task? I know the whole committee might not be able to attend council, but could they be given the task of appointing a couple of representatives to present their recommendation to council? And that would include whatever background information they felt relevant.
Absolutely, because I think we're having a conversation in an open forum, which is excellent, and a recorded, anyone can be watching this, but we don't have the other people here at the table to defend even why they made this recommendation. And we're leaning, looks like some of us are leaning to either way with this recommendation to not accepting it. We want to not change history, but we want to explain and maybe have an explanation of that's more relevant to today. So I don't know how Mallory's going to come up with the wording for that. While she's working away, I'm just going to look to see, I see Councillor McKechnie. Go ahead.
I mean, I don't have to tell council this. I mean, the subcommittee is not going to wear this. If we pass, whatever we pass here, we're the ones who are going to wear this for the rest of our lives. I think this is by far being not rushed, but and it's not just Sam Slick. It's what's next? I keep repeating that, but look what's going on around us. I mean, we got to sit back and take a look at our history and learn from mistakes that were made, not eliminate them. Let our youth know about our mistakes.
No, I hear you, Councillor McKechnie. And that's why I'm sort of saying we don't have to do anything today, but all that we should be doing today is making sure that we're giving direction back. Who are we giving the direction to? And Mallory's got her hand up, so I'm going to turn it back.
I'm just going to read what I've kind of written here. Be it resolved that Dysart Council requests that representatives from the Cultural Resources Committee subcommittee attend a future council meeting as a delegation to explain the recommendation and research regarding the renaming of Sam Slick Park. Does that work?
Yeah, the only thing I would add at the very beginning is that we received their report, because we were receiving it. We're not approving it. We're receiving that so that when they receive the report of today and that and the rest.
Sure.
Because then when, Mallory, you always, and I love that on our agendas now, and you put report here and there's a little blue hyperlink so that we don't have to go back and go, oh, was that September or August or, and the reports are right there. So Mallory has read that and added the fact that we've received in today's report. Is there a mover and a seconder for that? Councillor Donaldson and Councillor Smith. That's who I saw first. And Mallory has read that. And so I'll ask all in favor. And then that carries. Thank you. And that's good discussion. And I think it'll be far more beneficial to have them come and explain. So that concludes the open portion of our meeting. We are going to pass a resolution to move into closed at this time. So I need a mover and a seconder to go into closed. Councillor McKechnie and seconded by Councillor Wood Roberts. Be it resolved that council adjourn its regular meeting at 11:25 a.m. to discuss matters pursuant to section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended pertaining to a proposed disposition of land in the Township of Dysart Industrial Park property. All in favor? Okay, and that's carried. And just give a minute till we change over and are actually in closed. Can you turn off your cameras and mute? Thank you. Okay, we're back in open session. And there are no reports coming out of closed session today. So I will look to see if there's any notice of motion for today. And seeing none, I will look for a mover and a seconder to confirm the bylaw for today. Councillor Donaldson and seconded by Councillor Wood Roberts. Be it resolved that bylaw 2021-75 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular council meeting held on September 28, 2021, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and the corporate seal attached hereto. All in favor? Okay, that's great. And lastly, just a motion to adjourn. Anyone? Moved by Councillor Clark and seconded by Councillor McKechnie. Be resolved that council adjourn its regular meeting held on September 28, 2021 at 12:05 p.m. All in favor? Okay, and that is carried. So we are adjourned as of today, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Enjoy the fall colors. Bye now.